Taxi!
This is one of the worst things to ever happen to me. I was out in a bar all night with two of my closest friends from college. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, so it was a long overdue catch-up. It was about 2 a.m. and I had to go. I'd been drinking for about 6 hours and I could barely keep my eyes open. I left and went out onto the street, said goodbye to my pals and hailed down a cab. I got in. The taxi man didn't say anything when I told him my address. He didn't even nod, he just started to drive. I live in quite a secluded part of the suburbs, so it was surprising to me that he wasn't using Google Maps, but I didn't think too much of it. I was quite drunk. The man had a face mask on, and that, coupled with the fact that it was dark, meant that I couldn't quite make out his face or his facial expressions. But what I could make out was the fact that his eyes were on me in the rearview mirror. I felt uneasy but decided to try to ignore it. Maybe close my eyes. Nah, that was stupid. But the next thing I know, my eyes are open. I did drift off, it seemed. And the man is pulling me from the car, knife in my face, screaming for my wallet. I was disoriented and my heart was pounding in my ears. We were in the middle of nowhere. The sounds of his fierce yells deafening in the night air in that secluded area. I handed him everything that I had and he got in and drove away. Overwhelmed, I burst into tears and started walking. Eventually a car pulled over and asked me was I okay. The kind lady let me use her phone to call the police and I explained what had happened. They came and they drove me home. No more taxis by myself. Ever again. This is one of the scariest things to ever happen to me. I've never actually said it to anybody, so I decided to just type it down and hopefully it'll help somebody who ends up in a situation like this at some point. Even though I really hope that that doesn't happen, but if it does, maybe my experience, my shared experience could help. I was meeting a few clients for a couple of drinks. It was just supposed to be brief and to the point and professional, but we decided to just make it casual, have a chat, and sort out my proposal. It went really well and we ended up staying an extra hour longer than we were supposed to. Once we wrapped it up, I walked outside to get a cab. It took me 10-15 minutes to hail down a cab as it was quite busy, but finally I got one. The car seemed in bits, it was dented, the registration plate was old, and the guy in the front sure looked like he'd been out for a good few hours. He seemed tired and a bit dishevelled. These are things that I notice, but it didn't really bother me. I just really wanted to get home. I got in and the guy was really friendly. He was chatting to me about his family life, his wife, his kids. I was responsive, but not as friendly as I normally am, but that guy couldn't have known that, could he? Anyway, I continued to stare out the window, watching the lights go by, just hoping that I was going to get home quick enough, as I could really feel the want for my bed. At the next set of traffic lights, just as we were moving off, the guy was supposed to turn right, but he didn't, he turned left. This guy's been driving for a while, I presume, so maybe he knows a shortcut, maybe he knows a way that he normally goes, even if it's not the way that I normally go, so I decided not to say anything for a minute or two. Suddenly the guy started to cough. It was the weirdest thing, it was like he was having a little bit of an asthma attack or something. He was coughing and coughing and coughing. "Are you okay?" I asked. He kept on coughing, looked at me in the rearview mirror and nodded his head. "Sorry," he said through his coughs. While the man was coughing, I heard the car locks click. That was weird. Had he pressed them? Did he mean to lock the doors? And then it suddenly dawned on me. He was going the wrong way. And then he started coughing. And then the doors locked. Was the coughing a distraction? Was he hoping that I wouldn't notice that he locked the doors? This is the kind of thing that I always read a lot into, sometimes way too much. I had heard stories of taxi drivers who had had passengers jump out at traffic lights, try to get out of paying the fare, So maybe he just did it while he was coughing. It was just one of those things and the two things weren't related. But it just seemed like weird timing. I was feeling uncomfortable at this stage, so I braved myself to ask the question, you're going a different way than I normally would go. Are you sure you have the address right? The guy had stopped coughing at this point. He looked at me in the rearview mirror, and he said he was going to have to pull in for a second, that his chest didn't feel good. Do you need me to call 911? I said to him. No, it's okay. Just give me 1 minute. I'd really like to get going, buddy, if everything's okay. No, just give me 1 second. And in he pulled. We were in a small tunnel under the bridge, and it was quite quiet. There was a couple of cars, but it was dark. I could see the end of the tunnel, the lights, and I was suddenly very aware that I couldn't get out of the car. Not that I wanted to skip the fare, but just that I was deeply uncomfortable. Hey man, are you okay? I really need to go, I said to him, almost desperately. The man coughed. He bent over as he was coughing, and then his head snapped up and he looked right at me in the rearview mirror. You're not going fucking anywhere, he said. I felt my whole body run ice cold, a chill going all the way down my spine. I turned to the door and tried desperately to get out. The man was reaching into the glove box. There was a gun in the glove box. He turned around to me and said, give me your wallet, everything you have on you, and you won't get hurt. I complied. I heard the door locks click. He was letting me out. There wasn't a sidewalk in the tunnel, but I didn't care. I just hugged the wall as he sped off. As all over the place as I was, I made a note of the registration number, and I was delighted to say that I got it all. And as I walked back into town, I stopped into a cafe, I got a pen and a paper, and I wrote it down just so I wouldn't forget. I told the barista what had happened, and they let me use the phone. I gave my report, gave the taxi registration number, and went on my way. A couple of days later, once I'd recovered from the shock, I got a call back from the police. The registration plate was a fake, and the man wasn't a taxi driver, clearly. The world is going contactless, as we know. But I was so grateful that in that moment I actually had my wallet on me, and I had some cash in it. I shudder to think what he would have done if I didn't. I don't like to say these things because obviously there are a lot of good taxi drivers out there, a lot of good people, but I'm never ever getting a taxi alone ever again.